So good afternoon and welcome. I'm Kim Anderson. I'm the COO of Baypoint, and I just really wanted to thank you for joining us today. We know 2020 has brought a lot of change to the world, and we acknowledge that that's been exceedingly challenging for many people. But it's also brought a lot of change to Baypoint Wealth, a lot of positive change. We've merged two companies, JSK Financial and Baypoint Wealth Management. And we've also brought on board Lynn Dipple from Financial Advantage, and along with many of her clients. So we're very excited about the things that are going on at Baypoint, and we wanted to give you an opportunity to meet the new leadership team and to hear more about what's been going on here at Baypoint. So let's begin with just having each of the partners introduce yourselves and just give us a little bit of background about yourself, how you got to where you are today. So Jim, do you want to start?
Oh, great. I get to start out first. That's great. Yeah, my name is Jim Kantowski, and my firm JSK Financial Services merged with Baypoint Wealth on January 1, 2020. My background, I started out in the accounting world. I got a degree from East Tennessee State University in accounting, and I went to work for a small accounting firm, which grew and merged and ultimately became an extremely large accounting firm. I guess one of the things I learned early on in my career was there was two partners that I worked for that were really good at integrating kind of personal financial advice with business and tax advice. So I kind of remember that experience early on in my career, and I always had this vision of incorporating the two together. So that's sort of where I started out and how I got to be in the personal financial planning and tax business.
Great, thank you. And then Bill, do you want to go ahead?
Yep. Good morning, everybody. I'm Bill Huffnell, and similar to Jim, I started out in the CPA world. I worked for a small CPA firm out of Baltimore, Maryland, and I did a lot of, back then we thought it was grunt work. We did auditing, right? We audited financial statements for companies and, went on premise and examined their books. And, in hindsight now, I really appreciate the opportunity to do that. At the time, I thought it was, for 4 years of college, some of the worst work you could do. But we also did a lot of tax work, and I had an interest in that. We actually did tax returns back then before you had a computer, so you would actually do it by hand. And truly, it sounds funny, but to understand the tax code and understand how taxes work, if you do it by hand and you see how the calculations actually work, it really does give you fundamentally a good understanding of it. So, typical in the public accounting world, you do a couple of years and then a lot of people will move. And I did that. I worked for private industry for about 10 years and worked for a joint venture between GTE and Bell Atlantic. And we started up a new company over in Greenbelt, Maryland. And I worked in the accounting and finance and did some human resources and pension work. And that was where the opportunity to start figuring out more about financial planning started. And so particularly as employees would ask me questions about the 401k and other matters, and I happened to be good at it, and I understood it, and I liked it. So after 10 years with that company, they merged with another firm, and I had the opportunity to actually hang out my shingle. And so while I was with this firm, I went back to Johns Hopkins, got my master's degree in finance, and I also studied for the CFP exam and became a certified financial planner. So at the time of the transition, when I left, I was prepared to start my own business. So I literally just hung my shingle out and got started in the financial planning world. So, interesting enough, we just celebrated our 20th year anniversary 2 weeks ago. I remember on a Friday morning, I drove down to 301 Preston Street in Baltimore, Maryland, with my paperwork in hand, and I gave it to the clerk, and she stamped it, and I walked out of there with a company called Annapolis Financial Services, which is ultimately now Baypoint Wealth Management. And so 20 years later, that's where I am today. So that's a little bit about my background.
Thanks, Phil. And then Lynn, do you want to go ahead and
Yeah.
Give us
Hello,
your-
everybody. I'm Lynn Dipple, and let's see. So I started out in the legal world. I went to law school and became a member of the Virginia State Bar. And I kind of knew all along that, not all along, but halfway through law school, that it wasn't necessarily the career for me. I really enjoyed it, but I liked working more long-term with individuals, and I also was very analytical. So immediately I kind of stuck out in my class because I enjoyed tax law and estate planning and all the courses that no one wanted to take. And so I ultimately transitioned into financial planning, and I had read about something called fee-only financial planning in the newspaper. I lived in the DC area, and I read about it in the Washington Post, and I thought, that to me sounds like exactly what I want to do. I had a love of personal finance. I read a lot of books on it, and it was really sort of a personal passion for me. And so I ended up, I started at a CPA firm in Northern Virginia that had an asset management division. And I started in that division and had a great mentor. And this was in the late 90s. So it was quite a time to be in investments when everything was going crazy, and then the ultimate crash in 2001. And so it was a really exciting time. I learned a lot. And then a woman who ran that division and I ended up starting our own firm, also in Northern Virginia. And we were very successful, but I ended up being recruited to come on board to Financial Advantage in 2004. And the gentleman, founder of that firm, Michael Martin, was a terrific mentor for me. He was very well known in the industry, had come out of T. Rowe Price. And but what I loved about him was his passion, absolute passion for the industry and for helping clients and investments and capital markets. And so his enthusiasm was just, it filtered into everything that we did. And that's one of the things that I love about Bay Point. So Mike retired in 2017, and I became the president and CEO of that firm, and I enjoyed it. But I missed having that same kind of camaraderie and passion with partners, you know, in the business. So so I joined in July of this year, and I'm really pleased and excited to be here.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and Kim, if I could interject one thing, because I think it's an important point, and it'll come up a little bit later as we discuss, you know, why we merged, is that, you know, Jim and Lynn and myself all were fee-only fiduciary advisors from the start. It wasn't a transition. It wasn't, we didn't start selling products. From the very beginning, all three of us recognized the importance of comprehensive planning and being a fiduciary. And we started our careers that way, which is not always the case. And so, you know, as we move forward and we talk about, you know, how we merged and why we merged, that was an important part of it, because we all had relationships as part of an association of fee-only advisors where we sort of knew each other anyways. And we, you know, so we spoke, we knew each other, and we had a lot of things in common. And so I think that just helped as we decided to get together as a team.
Great, thank you. So before we get to that question about the merger, you each sort of touched a little bit on sort of the why you do what you do, but if you could just share with us maybe a little bit more about that, like what drives you in this business, and especially if you can share a moment when you really felt like, yeah, this is why I do what I do. So you can, any of you can answer, just jump in.
Well, I'll say that, you know, as I mentioned, when I was with, you know, the Bell Atlantic joint venture, you know, I started to develop a passion for financial planning. And, you know, back then there was radio shows you could listen to, or there was financial planners on the radio, and I would listen to it. And that's like when I worked out on a Saturday morning, I would listen to these shows. and I loved it. I thrived off it. And then, I got to the point where, I would disagree with some of the answers, and because I felt like I knew more than the people that were on the radio. And so, anyways, that just caused me to want to learn more and to get more involved with the industry. And I guess, you know, in the beginning, I worked with, any client that would work with me, right? Because I'm just starting out, and you go in thinking it's a financial services, and you're gonna, do the investments and tell them how to do an estate plan. But immediately, the feedback I started receiving was not that. It was people saying thank you because they felt that their lives were in order and that their families were taken care of. And when I started hearing that, it was very fulfilling, and it was a lot different than I expected when I first went into it. And so that was sort of my aha, like, geez, this feels good. We can really help people. And the other side of it was, back then there was people selling product, and even today we spend a lot of time fixing things that are probably inappropriate based on someone that's been sold an annuity or something. And so the ability to provide that information, not just comprehensively, but without any axe to grind and not selling any product, was just a really feel good type of situation.
Thanks.
So I'll add to that, and it was very similar for me in terms of the fiduciary component and helping people. I think one of the reasons why I work for the type of firm that I do, other than the objectivity, is that I get to know my clients really well. And I'm able to have long-term relationships. I have clients that I've worked with for 20 years. And I get to know their families and get to know, a lot about their lives. And I've been able to see the ultimate benefit of our work together and that collaboration. And I think for me, when I'm able to see somebody who has either struggled or not so much financially, but just in life, sometimes financially, there's been, a death or special needs situation, and I'm able to help that person to live a great life, and to see some of the milestones that people have achieved over the years, in ways they never thought that they would be able to. For me, that's when that happens. I think of a particular situation where someone was able to finally retire and do something that they'd always dreamed of doing, which was to travel extensively on board a boat. And, this individual just broke down crying. And, to me, that's really what it's all about for me. It's you have to have the expertise and the all the technical, but it's the human side that is at the end of the day where it matters.
Yeah, those are great stories. So for myself, I was always interested in financial services and investments, and I think, like Bill and Lynn have mentioned, it was really a sales job back in the day when we started. It was, you get on the phone, you cold call people, and you sell a product, and that wasn't me at all. I liked working with people and so forth. So, I was in the tax business, and the world sort of started changing early on in my career in the tax world, and this thing called financial services, I guess, got deregulated, and so banks and accounting firms were all of a sudden allowed to start practicing, and and the firm I was working with started a practice, and I raised my hand and I decided to help, and I really, really enjoyed integrating the two pieces. And you'll hear me talk about this all the time, of the taxes and the investments and the planning, and I think it really is a unique way to do things, and I really saw the value in that. So that's one piece. And then on the other side of things, sort of a personal story is, which drives me quite a bit, is that my mother was actually widowed at the age of 49, and I was a young man, and we had no idea whether we were going to be okay or not. And she's now 78 years old, and I still see the same worries that she had when she was 49 at 78. And so I really, really enjoy sort of sitting down with people and helping them understand that they're actually going to be okay, and that they're going to have enough money to live and to lead that life. And like Lynn said, you get in situations with people where, they have no idea that they can retire, or that they're going to have enough, or, they're in a tragic situation where they think they might have to sell their house or something like that, or move, or take their kids out of school. It's just having the ability to sit down and provide them comfort is a really, really rewarding experience. And so that's sort of what drives me. It's the whole personal interest in personal financial planning, but then, the emotional part is really special that we get to help people on these journeys. So.
Great, thank you. So I do want to talk about the merger and what was the motivation behind that. We've also had a specific question that came in from one of our listeners, and they just said, what's the advantage of this merger to me, a client or an investor? So if you can talk about the merger really from the client's perspective, that would be great.
Okay.
So I'll start from my perspective, Bill. So from a client's perspective, I was on my own, and I had 2 employees, which were fantastic. But one of the things that was always sort of in the back of my mind was, what if something happened to me? Is there a succession plan where somebody can step into my shoes and take over? And so that's a really big advantage for my clients that were working with me, is that we're now partnered with 3 great people who are wonderful. And if something did happen to the one business owner, there would be additional people to step right in the shoes and have a seamless transition. So that's one big advantage I see, at least from JSK side of the merger.
Yeah, so the continuity for the clients is a big advantage.
Yeah, I think that's an important component of it. And I went back probably in the summer of 2000, maybe 18. I forget when it was now, but the 3 of us sat down. Like you oftentimes hear synergies, particularly if you're watching CNBC, the CEOs get on and they talk about the synergies, and the synergies are often the ability, you got 2 HR departments and 2 accounting departments, and so we can cut costs and we can do all that. And that wasn't our driver at all. The decisions that we initially discussed were not financial decisions. They were other matters, knowing that if we did all these things right, the finances would work themselves out. And so I listed out, this is a list of things that we discussed at like our very first meeting. We met at Jim's conference room, and I remember sitting around that way, and this is the first meeting, right? We're just initially having the conversation about whether it makes sense. And so I'm going to just ramble off a couple of them. It was about culture. It was about family first. It was about a commitment to having a good balance between work and home life. It was maintaining a pleasant work environment. It was having fun. It was having a passion for excellence. It was a commitment to honesty and direct and clear communication. Willingness to ask questions, a commitment for all of us to continue to be curious and to learn, a culture of collaboration, a commitment to take responsibility if we do make mistakes and fix those mistakes, and to practice in a reliable and an integrity environment. And so, we had a kickoff meeting in Charlotte for the entire team back in January before the world changed. And the person that was facilitating it made the same observation. It's like Jim and I separately told him why we merged, and nowhere in that was anything to do with saving money or growing the practice. It was all about creating an environment where we had a group of employees that could work as a team and work under an environment where it was open and honest, and there was encouragement, which ultimately drives what we think the important factors to make sure that we've got employees that are looking to take care of our clients. And so a lot of the drivers were just based on the ability to combine our talents and to provide an environment where everybody can thrive. And based on that, knowing that we ultimately be able to provide a much better service in terms of a technical perspective, in terms of sharing all the ideas we have, and our experiences, and also just from an operational perspective to become, much more efficient in terms of our delivery of the service to our clients.
Yeah, and just thinking about the different talents that we've merged, and seeing the way they complement each other, that's been a really fun part of the merger. And the ability to add new services that we weren't able to prepare taxes before. So
Yeah.
and then Lynn, do you add to
Yeah,
that?
I just wanted to add to that. So for me, I've known Bill a long time. I don't know, probably 12 years. And when we first met, and Jim not as long, but specifically in the last several years, I had the opportunity to work closely with Bill. We were a member of a professional group where we would come together, several firms, leaders of firms would come together and share best practices and ideas and dig deeper into some of the more difficult parts of our business and of the planning and so on. And in doing so, I got to look under the hood a little bit more. And what I was impressed with was that culture of excellence and a level of commitment to the client that was very impressive. And in addition, I also felt like the services, there was a little more depth in expertise, not only on the tax side, but working with business owners, with types of entities and sophisticated transactions. So it was something that I wanted to have available to my clients. So it was a combination for me of incredible synergy between the three of us right from the beginning, and also truly believing in my heart that this was what I wanted to have available to my clients, which what they've had before was very good, but this is just beyond that. And so, those I have been in these talks from the beginning, but I had a little bit of work to do before actually joining the firm. And so that's my story.
Great, thanks. So just kind of related to this question, we did have a question come in about our office space and whether we've moved offices. So I thought we could just throw that in there as far as what's happened to our office space with the merger.
Well, Jim, if you don't mind, I'll take it. We haven't really changed anything. We have we still use the office periodically, but to a great extent, the office is empty, and so we are, like many firms, trying to figure that out and what the future looks like relative to not just how to use office space, but whether we need office space, and so the office is empty. There's a conference room there. We actually have had one or two meetings there where we stayed socially distanced and we've had masks on, but for the most part, everything is moved to a Zoom environment. We were fortunate enough to have an infrastructure in place from a systems perspective in terms of being cloud-based that, everybody went home overnight and worked from home, and truly we didn't miss a beat. We just continued to operate, and there was really there wasn't like there was a little disruption. There was no disruption in our operations, and that continues today.
Yeah, just to clarify though, we haven't moved, because that was the question. We haven't moved. We've kept all offices open, and in fact, we've added one in Columbia, Maryland. So.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Weston-Apple, so it's going to be hard to pull me out of there.
So, okay. Let me just see if there was anything else related there to the merger. So the one other one was just about new services with the merger. So we definitely have added tax services. Jim, maybe you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so I've mentioned this 2 or 3 times now. I think it's really important that we have a handle on people's taxes, and that just gives us the ability to help them plan a little bit better, and to have knowledge of their situation, and to be able to contribute to the right accounts, and so forth. So we've always prepared tax returns since we started at my firm in 2012. We don't have to prepare your tax return, but we do offer that. So it's in-house, and so the information is right there, and we can communicate and talk to each other about it. Regardless of whether we prepare your tax return or not, we're always taking taxes into consideration. So, we have 3 CPAs on our staff, Bill, myself, and Samantha, and so we're always collaborating and looking for ways to save people from a tax perspective.
Yeah, and I would say, this is the first year we've done it, of course, and we were doing a lot of planning on the tax side, and Jim prepared a couple tax returns for some of our clients, and we have very good relationship with outside CPAs, and we plan on continuing that, as Jim mentioned. But the integration, the communication, and for Jim and Billy, or Jim and Dan and I, to get on the phone together and have a tax return in front of us and know that from a broader perspective what the client planning needs are, it was very helpful, and we were able to really do some things that I think were creative and productive, and I think the clients appreciated it as well. They saw the benefit of combining those two things, and so I think it's worked out very well. The other thing, JSK provided 401k services. We were just starting to look at that, and so now, a lot of times we'll have a business owner that has a 401k, and more often than not, it's very common that an insurance company or some other entity that has really high costs, way above what needs to be paid, is what they're using, and so it gives us the opportunity to provide to our business owner clients a service that is just, I hate to use the word robust, but just as robust with everything. They're not dropping anything in terms of functionality or capabilities or educational stuff for their employees, and we're able to significantly lower their costs. And so we're looking at where we can to provide this 401k service to our business owners.
Yeah, one thing to add, or a couple of things to add too. It's been nice, the networks that we each have extensive other professional networks, and so to add additional resources for our clients through those connections has been really nice. And also, aside from Jim and Bill and I, there are others in the firm that have some depth expertise as well. Dan with the CFA, both Dan and Yvonne have great investment backgrounds. And Liz Yoder, who is working with people with special needs situations. So there's some special in-depth areas that we cover as well.
Great. Okay, I want to just back up because we're getting a lot of questions, so I don't want to miss them. But when we were talking about the office space, we didn't mention we do still have an office in North Carolina and also one in Sarasota, and we will continue those office spaces as well. Okay, let me just see what else. There's quite a bit here. This still relates to the merger, so I'm going to stick with this theme here. So are you becoming familiar with each other's client circumstances and accounts? In the event of a planner sudden unavailability, what will happen? So I just thought we could address that question.
Yeah, I'll start on that. I mean, that's certainly been a little bit of a challenge, but we are working really hard to do that. We've all made an effort to work with each other's staff and get a feel for how each person works. And so yeah, that's absolutely one of the benefits to merging together, and that's something we're definitely trying to do and help each other. Absolutely.
And if I could, I'll add to that, if you don't mind, Jim, that we do have a tendency on an operational perspective, and as well as a client service perspective, to work in a team environment. And so, from a broader perspective, we have a monthly meeting where we look at financial planning matters, and it gives us the opportunity to share cases and things that we just worked on. And so everybody gets to hear that, maybe that's an idea that could work for another client. And then also, and there's typically a lead advisor that has the primary relationship with the client, and there's support behind them. And so there's people that are working on the investments and people working even on the financial planning side that are also familiar with the case. So it does. It's still evolving to some extent because we're still relatively new, but the ability for more than one person and sometimes several people to have a pretty good understanding of the client's planning needs is definitely evolving.
Yeah, for sure. And I know for my clients, we're beginning to introduce a second advisor. So there's another advisor that's getting to know them similar to what they've been used to, so that at any time, if I'm not available, there's always somebody ready to step in. I think that's important.
Okay, one more question here related sort of to the merger, and the question is really around, it has the makeup of the firm in terms of distribution between retirement versus taxable accounts, or aggressive versus conservative accounts. So I think the question there is just really, has the makeup of the clients changed for the firm since the merger, in terms of maybe more towards retirement or more towards aggressive?
I'm not sure if that, the allocation of the portfolio is driven specifically on each client's needs. And so I'm not sure if the question is, do we have more clients now in retirement versus what we had before? But I don't think that's the case. It's a fairly even distribution, and it's probably pretty consistent as to where we were before. But in terms of the allocation, we have certain models we use that we think are best, based on each client's needs, and those haven't changed. Those are still in that range of very conservative, very aggressive, and understanding clients' time horizons and risk tolerance. And so we haven't made any changes there. And again, I'm saying this without knowing the specifics, but intuitively knowing what our allocations are, I still think we have a relatively consistent distribution of accumulators and people that are heading into retirement and people are retiring. I don't think there's been a material shift in that in the proportions allocated to each of the clients in that regard.
Yeah,
I think that was the gist of the question.
It's a very similar demographic, both in terms of risk tolerance and I guess the type of the phase of life, client's phase of life, that type of thing. I would say in terms of portfolios, it varies from client to client, and it always really has. There's no, some people have all taxable accounts, some people have all our IRAs, and there's everything in the middle, and that's really been the case always. But I will say that, coming together and bringing our different investment ideas and backgrounds and experience has allowed us to have a few more options available to folks, and that's really nice as well. But that being said, it's kind of all within a very similar demographic. So we're just able to have a little more nuance to it.
Okay, so this one's the one I was going to talk about next was about your approach to planning and some of the other services that we offer. So we've kind of talked about that, but I want to bring in this question from the audience because I think it's a really good one. And it has to do with the fact that for most of your clients, they're really looking to protect their own retirement funds, but also pass things on to the next generation. So you guys play a critical role in helping them either succeed in or fail at that. And given the challenging times we're in, the question is really about, are you open and available to them through good times and bad, and how can you help them successfully get through these challenges? So I think it relates to not just the investments, but the overall approach that you have in planning.
Well, I'll start. So I would say and maybe part of it is just with respect to the current circumstances in the world, but our perspective remains, from a longer term, understanding how markets react and how certain investments react, and then again specifically understanding what the client's needs are, including the next generation, and whether they're leaving assets to their children or to charity or whatever their goals are. And so our approach as a team was relatively similar, even though we all came from different firms. And so we may have improved it a little bit, because as we shared ideas, we realized that there was probably one person was doing it a little bit differently, and we all agreed that maybe that was the better approach. But fundamentally it's still the same. I feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit, but we do an evaluation of each client's specific needs, and we design a portfolio based on those needs, and we understand what their family dynamics are, and that's what drives all of our decisions. And that's the way it was before, and that's the way it continues today.
I don't know. I might have gotten something different out of the question. So, but and Bill, you could probably speak to this too. But also part of it is, if there's we're more than happy to meet with the whole family and bring in the younger generation into the planning to the extent that that's appropriate, and to help that younger generation be able to understand financial planning concepts, understand, if they've got a job and need some advice just starting out. So being able to offer those services as well for our clients.
Yeah, I didn't. I think you're right. I did miss that part of the question. And yes, yeah, absolutely. We have children. The dynamics are sort of, a child could be 18 or the child could be 55, and so it's a broad range. But we do have currently, several clients that are children of our, first generation of clients, and so we're already helping them with planning matters. And we've had family meetings where we have met with the entire family, and also, oftentimes just the kids. A lot of times the kids are 35 and they have, 2 young children, and they're just starting out, and we have the ability to, sit down with them for a couple hours and provide them with the guidance they need. And so we're most happy to do that, and we're very good at doing that. And so we're always willing to help on, any, next generation or any kind of family planning need.
So, but I think there's another part of that question, and maybe Jim, you can address this. And I think it's the idea that, how do these plans and these portfolios hold up under challenging times? How do you make sure the clients are resilient through, whatever turmoil is going on?
Yeah, so our jobs get really difficult during these difficult times, and so that's what we're here for. And the reality is that's why we focus so much on planning in the beginning. We believe that if you start with a really, really solid plan that is based on your goals and your objectives and your needs, and you're in the right risk tolerance, and you have the right asset allocation, we're not perfect. But we're going to try and get as close as we can. And so that when we hit these bumps in the road, or these difficult situations, or these, whatever you want to call them, we're sort of prepared ahead of time. So we're not, chaotically making changes. What our answer is a lot of these times is, instead of going out and changing investment portfolios or trying to pick the next stock or reallocate, it's really, let's take the time, let's revisit your plan, let's see how this has affected your plan, let's see how changes to your portfolio would actually affect your plan going forward. So, it sort of retests your risk tolerance, and and we're more than happy to work with you to get you through that time frame, and help you adjust if we need to adjust, and update your plan and so forth. So we think that's really the right approach, is to revisit your plan and make sure everything's still on track, instead of reacting in an emotional way to your portfolio and changes.
Yeah, and tying it in with the cash flow projections, in terms of stress testing that, and what if there is a downturn, or what if there's some loss of portfolio value for 2 years or whatever. And so can your if you're in a distribution phase, can your our withdrawal needs be met by some of the fixed income part of the portfolio, whatever. So those are all very specific, but that does tie back into what type of return you need and how much risk you can stand, how much volatility. So yeah, so it really is about the cash flow planning just as much as it is about the specific investments that are in the portfolio.
Yeah, we'll want to make sure that everything's tied together, tight with, you know, a good estate plan, with insurances, with all those different things that, so if you hit a catastrophic event, you're prepared to deal with it, again, from the start and not reacting.
Great, thanks. I think you guys hit that question. But I wanted to just tie back to something you were saying earlier, Bill, about providing support and help to children of clients. We did have a question. Do you have any resources that you recommend for young adult children, especially, you know, to start teaching them about wealth management, preparing them for potential inheritance?
Well, we've changed a little bit over the years. We were for a while, like from a budgeting perspective and learning how to manage, you know, your cash flow on an annual basis to plan. We were using You Need a Budget, YNAB, and so we were just handing that. We had just a bunch of those books that we would hand out to the children as they needed it. At one point, we used actually one of our competitors' books because I liked it a lot and it was very thorough. Rick Edelman had a book called The Truth About Money. And, you know, while we don't always agree with everything he says, I thought that book fundamentally in terms of covering the things that were important for the children was a good book. And so we would recommend that they purchase that as well. And then lastly, you know, we had a fairly, you know, generic type planning agenda that applied to most, you know, 35, 40-year-old clients. And so we had the ability to bring them in and you know, look at some of their basic documents and give them some advice, you know, one-on-one, which we think was, you know, the feedback we got, that was very helpful as well.
So actually meeting with the children of our clients.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we're always happy to have a conversation as needed with clients, even if there's no money to manage or if they just have a general question or they need help with something. We're always available to help.
Yeah, I would say, like, because a lot of these children are purchasing homes, you know, we've probably assisted 30 of them with their financing needs to make sure they got, you know, understood the product they were getting and got them the best deal from a financing perspective. And so, you know, and we're happy to do that. And so yes.
So one more question that's come in from the audience. Do each of you have a specialty? So Lynn, you started talking about how there's some areas within, not just the three of you, but within the firm where people have some specialties. So could you just talk about, for the three of you, kind of what your areas of specialty are?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can speak to that. I have a broad range of clients. Typically, they are either in their mid 50s, coming in their mid 50s or early to mid 50s and up through retirement. But and I have couples, individuals, a variety of different types of folks. However, a lot of what I guess I gravitate to, or what has evolved, is working with women who are either single women or women who are the professional women, and I guess are the financial person in the relationship, and also working with folks who have been either divorced or widowed, are a couple of the areas of specialty.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
Yeah, all right. I would say, you know, pretty much a broad base. I have a lot of fun working on the accumulation piece in terms of funding the right accounts from a tax perspective, and then also, you know, once people get to that retirement helping them strategize on where to take money from and when in order to minimize their tax liabilities and allow their money to last. And as Lynn mentioned, in terms of widows, I also have that soft spot, as I mentioned earlier. And so people in stress or challenging times are who I like to work with.
And I would say, mine is probably broader based as well. And, clients that are approaching or just entering retirement. I do have a sort of a subset that's a little bit of a specialty. And those are people that own businesses. And, we're quite good at, there's a lot of interdependencies between the business planning for a business owner and their personal planning. And so, my CPA and accounting background, I can look at a financial statement and I can look at a balance sheet and I can analyze all of that, and I understand corporate structure and entity types. And at the same time, we do personal financial planning. So our ability to sit down with a business owner and help them figure out what needs to be done. Yesterday, for one of the local chambers, we did a succession planning for business owners, and so that's one of the things that we specialize in. And so for a business owner to come to us, we're quite good at coordinating the business needs, making sure that the business is taken care of in the case of, from a longer term perspective, just in terms of transitioning the business, in the event that something comes up unexpected, that we've got a plan in place to take care of it. And then ultimately making sure that we've got that dovetail with their estate plan and their other planning to make sure that their spouse and family members are taken care of.
Yeah, I would say that's one area of improvement is the estate planning piece that Bill brings to the table. Is he's got some expertise there that, I'm knowledgeable in it, but he has some real expertise that's been very useful so far.
Okay, great. So I feel like we've touched on all of the questions that have come in from the audience. So I wanted to just, I wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about the future of the firm, what's your vision for it going forward? And do you think you'll continue to grow and merge with other firms, or kind of what your picture is for that?
Well, one thing I would interject in between before we do that is, the dynamics of all of our different personalities and all of our different talents, not just the leadership team, but the company in general. We had this sort of vision of how it would work, and I would say it has worked spot on. And so, I think that creates a foundation for us to grow. One example I give is, we're looking at but adding another custodian to the business. We use TD Ameritrade and Schwab, which is now just Schwab, which is causing us to try to find another custodian. And I was 4 weeks behind on getting them back the information they requested. And I said, sometimes decisions are taking a little bit longer now that we're a joint team. And he said, "Oh, what a hassle." And I said, no, it's really not a hassle. It's actually, I'm getting the ability to hear the input from other people to make the decision, which is very valuable. And we deliberate and we consider things. And so all of that feedback and differences of opinion and voices of dissent make a big difference in terms of how the business is operated. And I think it does create a foundation, for us to continue to grow the firm. So the plans, if Jim and Lynn, if you don't mind, I'll start off. We have this system we use called Traction, and Kim's very good at facilitating it for us, and it causes us to focus on longer term goals, and then sort of distilling that down to the shorter term, what we need to do. And again, we go back, and when we look at our plans are to create an environment and a culture that best serves the needs of our clients and best provides the opportunities for our employees. And so the financing side is important, and you have to understand how the finances work, but the drivers behind the growth are not like financial objectives. We certainly would like to grow. We would like to grow at a good pace, but the ultimate drivers of what we're trying to accomplish are based on the ability to create a firm that, we don't want to grow big just to grow big, right? Because big doesn't mean better, but we do think by continuing to get better, which we're very good at doing, just incrementally improving the business, that will cause us to get bigger. And so we intend on growing the firm. We intend on growing it at a reasonable pace. And occasionally I've used the term that we'd like to grow small, meaning that we would like to be a larger firm, but we don't want to lose the environment we have now and the structure we have now in terms of being able to be very close to our clients, to be able to understand their needs specifically. And so growth is on the horizon. We don't have like a how big we're going to be, but we do want to continue to grow. And there's benefits to that. We discussed some of the benefits in terms of just sharing ideas and knowledge and experience from a client perspective, but it also, in terms of attracting talent, in terms of succession planning, and there's a lot of things that go into growth that are outside just the financial side of it. And so we feel it's important to continue to grow and to provide an opportunity for more stability and to attract and retain very good client, which is what ultimately provides us the opportunity to offer our clients the very best service.
Lynn, do you want to go? Or I
was going to say, I don't know if I have anything to add. That was really, really great. I mean, I know in our industry, there are firms that are looking to acquire a lot of different firms. They're called roll-ups, and they're looking to really aggressively grow. And then there are firms that are more of a lifestyle practice that are really just, they're not growing, somewhat intentionally, but there's a limited life to that. And so I think, we have a really nice balance. We're not trying to have the aggressive growth. I like the term grow small. That's why I work for the type of firm that I do, as opposed to a large firm. I want to keep that intimate relationship with the clients, and also a very collaborative relationship among the staff, but yet provide opportunities for the young talent and continue to provide the best resources for our clients.
Yeah, I'll just add that I was with a really big firm for a long time, and I'm not going back. So I think our vision is to be a great company, and we all agree on that, and we all agree that the client comes first, and we agree that if we do those things right, then we will grow naturally. And so we want to be prepared for that, and there's a lot of advantages to our employees and to our clients if we do that correctly. And in everybody's best interest, instead of just growing to grow.
Yeah, and I'll add just one thing to that, and it sort of goes back. We're all members of this group called NAPFA, the National Association of Personal Financial Advisors, and that group just generally, there's probably 400,000 advisors in the United States. There's probably 200,000 certified financial planners, and there's probably 4,000 that are members of this NAPFA group, which are the fiduciary fee-only advisors. And and fundamentally, all of us have sort of the same mentality of sharing ideas, of caring for the client, of caring for our employees. And so, like from the very beginning, when Jim and Lynn and I started talking, there was no question about that. There was no uncertainty. It was just, we were very congruent from the very beginning in terms of what our goals are. And the goals were always, Jim came up with something in one of our recent meetings, and I forget what exactly it is, but it's, better employees, better clients, and there was three betters. We sort of half stole it from
better advice.
Better advice, yes, yeah, and that's it. It sort of sounds sort of simple, but that is what's driving us the whole time. And as we make decisions, it's always within the context of is it improving us as a company? Is it providing better service for the client? And that's what drives all of our decisions. And so ultimately, that's going to drive growth, because I think our model is naturally attractive to prospects and clients. And so I think just by default, we're going to, get new business by doing that.
So I wanted to see, Bill, we had talked about just introducing the rest of the staff. So we're coming up on an hour here, so
Oh, wow.
I could share my screen and just bring up the sort of group shot. And if you want to just talk through kind of the different team members real
Yep.
quick. Okay, we'll do that.
Be happy to do it. I'll preface the introduction of the individual staff. And you hear people say this all the time, but there couldn't be a better team of employees that work together on a collaborative basis without any egos. We spend time laughing together. We all have a good sense of humor, and we enjoy working together. And so I think all of us, I speak for the whole entire group, we could not be prouder of everybody that's on the screen here. So and individually, as Jim mentioned, we have 3 CPAs. We have, I think, 7 certified financial planners. We have a chartered financial analyst, an investment type person, and we have a JD. We have Lynn, that's an attorney, and so the technical knowledge is very important. And I think fundamentally we've got this really good base of people that have this technical knowledge. But just as importantly is these are people that are approachable, that have good personalities, that have a desire to help. The things we see on TV today, and the state of politics, it tends to be quite negative. But as I look at some of our staff that are 32 and 35 years old, my opinion that is, if these kids, they're not kids, but I'll use that expression, are the future of the country, then I think we don't have anything to worry about, because every one of us is ambitious and caring and kind. And so with that, I'll go into everybody individually real quickly. So I'm going to go from left to right. The far left is Debbie Lehman. Debbie, and next to her is Samantha. They are down in our Asheville office. And so Debbie does a lot of client service, investment management operations. She's really top notch, always on top of things, very good at following up. Samantha is a CPA, and she runs the tax preparation practice for us. Again, exceptionally sharp, and slowly progressing more to more financial advisory type relationships as well. And so she's growing that. And then there's Jim, and Jim and I have known each other and been friends professionally and personally for a long time, and served on boards together. And couldn't ask for a better partner than Jim. Yvonne is the next person over. Yvonne is 15 or plus years working for Schwab in the investment management world, and so she gets client relationships. She understands fundamentally the investments. She's worked very closely recently as we've been looking at models and investments and security selection. Dan is a CFA, and so he didn't come out. He came out of an investment world, and he's proven himself in a very short period of time to be very competent in terms of comprehensive planning. And he sat for and passed the CFP exam on the first try, which is not an easy thing to do. And he just did it 2 weeks ago. So Dan's our newest CFP. And then there's me, of course. And then Liz. Liz is an associate advisor also in the last 12 months. She passed her exam, but you need a certain number of years of experience. And so Liz in the spring got past her 3,000 hours or whatever the requirement is. So she is now a CFP, and she is slowly evolving from a support type role as an advisor to beginning to take lead role with some of her client relationships. And as Lynn mentioned earlier, she came from a social worker type background, and she has a keen interest. And she approached us. So this is the culture of education and curiosity. She came to us and said, "Hey, I found a program where there's a certificate that I can get that provides financial advisors, a specialty in terms of helping families that have children or other family members with special needs. And so we said, yeah, sign up for it. And she's taken it, and she's full throttle in getting that certificate. So and then next to her is Kim, who Kim is got the unique talents of being, from a technical perspective, a certified financial planner, and she is an operational specialist. We occasionally come up with ideas that aren't particularly good, and she's pretty good at telling us that. And then when we do have a good idea, she communicates it to the staff. She distills it down to what needs to be done from an operational perspective, and she gets it implemented. One of the, why do you merge, right? So before we merged, I had a list of like 10 things on my operations list that were on there for 3 years, because I knew I had to get to them. And there were things that were difficult to do, and that was not something that I was particularly good at. And so the ability to have, a valuable team member and part of a leadership team with Kim is truly a significant benefit. So, and then to the right of her is Chris, who I think many of you know happens to be my wife. And Chris does our payroll, does a lot of administrative work, does our bookkeeping work, does scheduling, and then next to her is my son. That's Billy. And Billy, Billy went from graduating from college right into the business, sat for his CFP, and like Dan, got his certified financial planner designation right away, and has literally thrived ever since. And and is currently handling several client relationships, many of which are very complex, and particularly enjoys, as I do to a large extent, the estate planning side of it. So so you can see, individually, each one of them have a unique talent, a unique personality, and as a group, we get on a check-in meeting. I think it's every other week, and it's a good meeting. It's laid back. We cover important matters. We make sure that everybody has the opportunity to communicate every concerns, but we also spend a lot of time sort of laughing, and I think that's an important part of life, having a good sense of humor, and so in any case, that's our team, and I'll reiterate, I couldn't be prouder of every single one of them.
Okay, that is the end of our Meet the Team webinar. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your participation, your questions, your time today. If we didn't get to a question that you had, or you have any kind of follow-up questions, please feel free to send them to us, and we will definitely follow up with you.
Yeah, thank you all very much.